What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is D.H. Thorne. Today's video is going to be about the concept of telling spirits what to do. Now, as a practitioner of demon sorcery, infernal theurgy, one of the methods, my favorite method for manifesting magical intention, is to try to put it in the hands of spiritual forces or have those spiritual forces guide me in what kind of magic or mundane action I need to take to get what I want. It's a little different, obviously, from some kinds of magic where you do a spell and the outcome supposedly pops up into the reality. This is, very often, it's going to be something that is spiritually inspired. Okay, it's going to come in the form of gnosis from a spirit, dreams, visions, etc., or you'll just see things mysteriously fall into place in your life to follow the intention that you have. And part of the practice requires, of course, somehow getting spirits to comply with your vision of things. And this is where a lot of people make a couple of crucial errors in thinking, if not practice. There's basically 2 or 3 schools of thought, depending upon how you look at this. There's a school of thought in which demons are somehow inferior. You're a right-hand path sorcerer, you are a Christian, you're something like that, where you feel like these spirits are here to be bossed around because Solomon contained them in a brass vessel. Specifically the goetic spirits. But this applies to pretty much any demon. Demonology is the study of demons and how to put them in their place, basically. But a demonolator, a demon sorcerer, an infernal theurgist, doesn't have that perspective, obviously. We want to work with these spirits in some sort of a respectful manner. Some people go right-hand path again to the point where it's not just worship, it's submission to these beings. They don't just ask them for help, they ask them to be puppeted, basically, and they give all credit to the spirits and none to themselves for their actions, instead of sharing the respect, possibly. Like a Christian, when they win a ball game, they go, well, that's because of God, not because of me, or something. Demonic spiritual forces don't have that hang-up. They don't need you to give it all to them like that. But the question comes up, and it comes up sometimes from people who I'm mentoring and sometimes from just people who want general consultations or private messages, and they say, Thorne, how do I know, number one, that the spirit is going to agree to my terms? Number 2, how do I know that, how do I get them to agree to them? How do I convince them to agree to what I want? Do I just bribe them with more offerings and stuff like that? And the general school of thought goes along the lines of you offer something to the spirit, or you listen to what they ask for, and you give it to them, and they'll reciprocate by giving you what you want. There's a pact mentality, which is not inaccurate. However, there's a thing that most people don't often think about, and that is the fact that these spiritual forces, want to do these things. They want to act in these capacities. They are archetypal forces. Sentient, yes, but they're archetypal. They are self-aware, but they want to act. Like a storm wants to be a storm. A tree wants to be a tree. You want to be a person. Okay? A battery wants to have electricity in it that you can discharge, A ball wants to drop when you let it go. These things are already kind of happening in a way. So the real trick to doing infernal theurgy is not convincing a spirit to help you and begging them and bribing them. That's not how this works, really. You can do it that way, and people have success that way, I suppose, but I think they're mistaking that success because they think it's their bribery or begging, when in reality it's the spirit was already excited to do this for you for whatever reason. Okay. Now, does that mean that they will always agree even if it's something they want to do? No. Here's the secret, okay? And I say this to you over and over again in my books, in my videos, in all of these things. The reason that manifestations work, the reason why magic is not causing anything, the reason why you're having difficulty manifesting sometimes, has to do with your intention, your true intention, not your ego's intention. This is a common problem people have. They mistake what their ego wants from what their higher true self wants. And when I say higher true self versus ego, it sounds like they're separated, but they're not. Rather, there is a delusion you are having as to what you are. If you believe you are your ego, if you believe you are whatever your name is, for example, if you identify the self with the story you tell about the self, you are not living your true intention. You are not living your true life in the same way that someone who recognizes that their personality, their ego, is a mask that they wear to interact with reality. And I beat this horse to death over and over and over again because that is the most common flaw in people's practice of magic. They think of themselves as this, as this, as this. They think they're in here, or maybe in here. What they don't understand is that all of this is within the spirit. It is within the soul. It is within the true self of consciousness. Every action you take is based upon an intention that started somewhere behind the curtain. Every idea your ego has, every thought your ego has, is an expression of that higher self, but it is not the higher self. And it's not even honesty. You can have thoughts that are lies, of course. You are not your thoughts. You are the spaces between them. So when you're trying to work with the spirit, your spirits don't, they see through your ego a lot. In other words, they already know your ego is just an interface for them to communicate with you with. And they are able to look past that ego, and generally they can see much more clearly what your true intentions are. They already know what you as a spiritual being is already going to be doing, or at least what your intentions are to do. Whether your ego carries it out is another question. Just like any tool, a tool fails us sometimes. An ego fails us very frequently. It's an imperfect tool. There is no such thing as a perfect tool. Just like a screwdriver can slip off of a screw, just like a hammer can bend a nail, your ego can screw up your intention and not carry it out correctly in your actions. And when you believe you are your ego, when you have identified entirely with that ego, or even mostly, that's when you run into problems, not just in magic, but in life in general. That's when all of this cascades into failure and problems. We all do it, even the enlightened, people who have had that moment of disillusionment. So long as we choose to live in this life, that's what's going to happen. We're going to continue to have these moments of screw up. And to be honest with you, an ego is an indispensable part of reality. It's just disillusionment. When you no longer associate with your ego, but you're aware of it, that's when things start to move in better ways, because now you no longer identify as your ego. Your ego now you have better control over it. Kind of like if you take a pencil, right, or a pen, and you want to write. Well, you can write like this. You can fucking white knuckle grip that thing and just be like, draw your letters, right? Or you can very gently grip it right, at the tips of your fingers, right at the, right with just the pads of your fingers, just delicately, and just let your arm flow and just be graceful. That's the difference. Someone who's identified with their ego is a white knuckle grip on their ego. And someone who is more disillusioned with their ego, someone who's more enlightened, someone who's more liberated, someone who's ascended a little bit more, someone who's experienced some of that apotheosis, okay? They're not white-knuckling the pencil or the pen or the ego anymore. They are much more relaxed about it. They let it flow. In this way, your theurgy works the same way. Your magic, your ritual works the same way. When you are contacting a spirit, assuming it is one of these spirits that is already known to be in good humor towards humanity, that is willing to work with us and not deceive us left and right, that spirit already knows what your highest, truest intention is, or at least has a better idea of it than you do, and that's why it's attracted to you. This is why I often tell you the best spirits come to you first. Spirits come to you. And you actually have to ask yourself sometimes, did they cause some of the crisis and conflict in your life that might inspire you to call on them? People get uncomfortable when you say that, because they expect magic to always lead to some benevolent, great outcome. It doesn't. Magic is power. Magic is the lifeblood of the universe. Magic is how things flow. It is the ability of your consciousness to choose the path through the multiverse that it wishes to experience. And what it wishes to experience is not what your ego is going to decide to experience in every case. It's going to have you experience things you don't want as an ego. You're going to get into car accidents. You're going to lose loved ones. You're going to have coronavirus that destroys your world for a while. It's part of the flow. It's part of the game. Okay? So getting a spirit to do what you want is actually more a matter of using divination and scrying and being self-aware. Having an enlightened mind where you're already going with the flow of your truest intention and not fighting that flow. When you're doing that, the spirits come to you and they're eager to help you. In that situation, you don't have to beg them, you don't have to bribe them, and you don't have to boss them around. You do need to speak with authority, however. That is a key that I have found. The moment you start begging and pleading is the moment you're putting yourself in submission to them. And that's usually not, especially not what the demonic spirits want. The demonic spirits, at least if you're just, even if you're just going by the Judeo-Christian mentality of what a demon is that it's an upstart, it's a rebel against authority, okay? Now that's not how I see them necessarily exactly, but they are filtered through that archetype, because they are the dark side of the pagan gods, the heathen gods of old. They are the rebellious side that remains, that's still intact in Christian culture. Even after the revival of paganism, they're still a valid spirit to work with because they're a facet of a valid spirit that exists. And you can work with the pagan side and the dark side and work with them separately even. Just like you can represent yourself one way to one friend and another way to another friend while in the same room together. So these spiritual beings, you don't have to coerce them, you don't have to force them, you don't have to convince them, and you don't have to bribe them. However, they may want reciprocity. They may want you to give to them something in exchange for what you're asking for. It's a give and take. They are eager to work with you. You have to remember something I said a long time ago, and it's very true. When you erect an altar in the name of a spirit, assuming that you have a good relationship with that spirit, they're erecting an altar to you in their world. You have to recognize that this is a two-way situation. And if you are worshiping them, in a way they're worshiping you in return. And if they're not, you might need to explore what you're doing wrong. They see us as the same way we see ourselves. We are avatars for our divine consciousness to facilitate a material world experience. They, as disembodied spirits, or non-local spirits is probably a better term, because they probably do have some physicality, but it's spread thin, like it's the electromagnetic field of the universe or something. Whatever they are in the material world is non-local and therefore non-visceral. It doesn't have the ability to reach out and pick up an object as easily as you and I do. That's not to say they can't. We've all seen weird things. We've heard the thumps in the walls. We've had the flames move. We've had the smoke turn into shapes. We've had these things happen, okay? But unlike us, that can just easily and do that and manipulate it, it either takes a lot more than they're willing to do, or they can't. And they have to go through other means to do so. However they get it done, one of the ways that they like to do things is through humans and other organisms. Because especially human beings and animals to a lesser extent. In some ways animals are even better at it, but humans in particular. we are set up to be conduits through which consciousness can interact with mortal reality. And when we step aside a little bit in our own avatar and share the controls of the spirit in the form of possession or invocation or channeling, they can get a lot of shit done. And if they ask you for something, okay, watch the movie Needful Things. Okay, that's a really, I've only watched part of it, but I know the gist of it really well. Watch that movie and understand that this is the way the spirit world works. Just not necessarily for, causing chaos and pain necessarily, but that's how they work. You ask the spirit for something and they'll ask you for something totally unrelated. I tell this story over and over again. Go to this part of town, put a rock on a fence post, don't look back. Why? I don't know. What that did, I don't know. I can only assume that maybe it was an answer to somebody else's question. Maybe it was somebody saw it and it affected their thought patterns. Maybe, who knows? Who knows what that did? It set up a chain of events in the pattern of chaos of reality. This is the kind of things they ask for. This is why they will ask you to do things or give them things in return. Sometimes it's because by giving them something, for example, leaving an offering of fruit and meat or something in the middle of the wilderness, you're feeding some animals that are going to go on to do something else, and this chaos pattern persists. Or they're actually taking that energy. This is why they might ask you for strange sacrifices or for strange actions, because they're eager for you to interact on their behalf. You should not have to beg, plead, or coerce. You might have to negotiate, yes. But it's never been a problem for me. It's never been if you don't want to give me what I want, then you're not good enough to get what I can give you. That's never happened. It's always been like an offer. Like, I've had weird offers for things. Sometimes I think they're testing me to see what I'm willing to do. What am I willing to give to get the things that I want? They'll ask me hard questions. You can be an all-powerful sorcerer, but you have to give up your YouTube channel. That's kind of, not that they've given me that, but like, what would you answer that? If I was an all-powerful sorcerer, couldn't I just magic up another YouTube channel? So, not that they've ever offered that. I'm saying it's just a funny concept. Stuff like that. They'll ask you things like that, and it's up to you. It's up to you to approach these spirits as entities that I hesitate to ever call them superior to you, because they're not. They are you. They're just like you. They are a similar consciousness to you. They are divinity just like you are. It's just that they've been disembodied in their concept of time, which is nonlinear, than you have. They are fully self-aware of their spiritual nature, whereas you're still questioning it. And they are able, because they don't have the distraction of a bodily avatar, they have a laser beam focus into the spirit of what you are. Things that you deny yourself because you're stuck in your biological avatar, they see very clearly. They see your shadow very clearly. They know what your little shadow secrets are. They know when you're lying to them. They know when you're being deceptive. This is why, and I've said it over and over again, sincerity is one of the biggest keys to working with the spirit world, and that is one of the biggest reasons why it's part of my practice in what I do publicly. If I lie to you, if I misrepresent the spirits, if I misrepresent my own thoughts, that's not a good practice for working with spirits, is it? So you might as well get in the habit of it in your everyday life. And by being sincere and by being honest, you get the good and the bad. You get to see what the spirits are like, and this pleases them. Because they are generally, I've never had a spirit lie to me. They have told me things in symbolism that I've misinterpreted. They've told me things that maybe led me in the wrong direction. But they've never outright lied to me. And if they did, I don't consider it a lie, because a lie is the intention to conceal or deceive something important from someone so that they don't understand, find out. It's a baneful act, okay? But sometimes deception is part of skillful method. When you're watching The Matrix and Neo goes to meet the Oracle and she implies that he's not the one. Well, at that moment, he wasn't the one. So she wasn't really lying to him. But she definitely deceived him in a way. And part of that deception was the only way he could discover that he was the one. Spoiler alert, by the way. If you haven't seen The Matrix by now, I'm sorry. Where have you been? In the same sense, a spirit will sometimes seemingly misguide you. They will tell you something that is not specifically true, but then in the process of working with that information, enlightenment occurs as part of that process. You discover the truth behind it. So really, I don't know what I'm going to call this video. It's kind of, just some general thoughts on working with spirits. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is D.H. Thorne. As always, if you want to support my channel and want to support my work, make sure you check out the description of this video. You're going to see a list of links to my Amazon books, as well as Patreon, as well as other places you can find me on the internet if you want to interact with me, if you want to send me messages. If you don't have any way to support me financially, or you just don't want to, but you still want to give me some kind of assistance, obviously you can easily leave me a comment under this video, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get those email updates, and then share this video with like-minded individuals who will be responsible about their handling of this kind of subject matter. Preferably don't send this channel to a Christian group or something. Not that they would necessarily have a problem with everything I talk about, but actually, yeah, they would. Who am I kidding? But so if you want to support me, guys, that's the best way to do it. And until next time, mind the shadows.